Aimee Lutkin.
I'm Zubalsky.
And we are two members of a collective, which is part of a larger network of collectives called Trade School.
Trade School is an alternative learning space that runs on barter.
At Trade School, anyone can teach, and students sign up by agreeing to meet the barter requests of teachers. This is Quinn, who's teaching comics and cartooning for everyone, and I think one of his barter requests was for cardboard for a fort he was building, so just gives you an idea.
Trade School celebrates practical wisdom, mutual respect, and the social nature of exchange.
So economic systems don't just produce goods, they produce people. And our experience of work and school and debt really shape who we are, and our experience of competition, consuming cheap goods, and always worrying about getting fired or not paying our student loans can really take a big toll. It shapes us both emotionally and physically.
And we're trying to think of how to make spaces without coercive power, where our needs and our desires could be met.
So money is clean in the sense that it ends a transaction very clearly. But when you take money out of the equation, two people, maybe one who has a lawnmower, instead of renting it, you're sharing it with your neighbor. And then trust becomes the primary currency. So neighbors have to talk to each other to get what they need.
And that trust that's exactly what posits future relationships, which eventually turn into networks. And these networks are what we turn to when these larger structures like the economy or the government fail us. And it's also what we turn to when we want to feel less alone, like in this snapshot of one of our parties.
So people are motivated by a variety of things that can't be compensated by money. They want a sense of belonging and the desire to build a network. They want to share ideas. They want to speak truth. They want to produce beauty. Many people think about barter as haggling, like trying to get the very most you can while giving the least back. Also, a common misconception about barter is that it's a rudimentary form of capitalism. Actually, most barter systems come into effect when monetary economics fail. And before capitalism, there's the redistribution model, which is more about cultural capital and sustaining the community as a whole.
We noticed that students are excited and proud to bring teachers their barter items that they made or baked. And teachers are honored and happy to receive those things. Like this teacher.
So, what's an appropriate barter item? Sometimes our teachers do ask for things that are bought with money outside of the classroom.
But what we're actually trying to make people do is reconsider what they already have and how the redistribution of these things could benefit others. This is a list of barter items from an upcoming class. And we're trying to, when teachers propose classes, we're trying to suggest that they also include not only objects, but also time and labor.
So the end result is that teachers trust students, and because teachers are students, so they're going through the same thing on both ends.
Yeah, I mean, outside of trade school, teachers often don't really tell you what they want. They assume you can't help or that you don't care. That sometimes it results in this kind of students.
But when we're bartering and we read the barter items suggested by a teacher, we're asked to engage with them, and not only with their needs, but with their lives.
So an important goal of trade school is to make more and more people teach. We believe that everybody has something to offer. Often when I introduce this idea to other people, they can imagine themselves as in the role of a student. But then when they realize that they can also become teachers and share this unique skill that they have or this particular bit of knowledge, they seem to be very excited about it. And it's an excited idea to think about both children and adults embracing this role.
Yeah, and because a lot of people are experiencing the role of a teacher maybe for the first time, we have a lot of non-traditional classes, not only subject matter-wise, but just in the way that they're taught. And I have found myself sitting in on them that I'm often absorbing information in a way I wouldn't have suspected, because that's how they're trying to shove it in me. Life experience can be as important as book learning, so we do a lot of hands-on stuff. We think that craft can embody a philosophy.
Also, by doing, we're often more open to critical ideas. So yeah, a lot of classes tend to be practical and crafty.
But we also love classes that are rooted in pedagogy. We have a lot of lectures about economics, organizing, and activism, or whatever people are interested in talking about. And it's not only classes, it's also a lot of behind-the-scenes work. So when we're organizing for the community, there's a lot of stuff you need to know about how the place runs, and part of it is the history. So Trade School was born out of Our Goods, which is a one-to-one barter network, where if, for example, you're looking for someone who owns and knows how to operate a sewing machine, and you have a space that would be appropriate for a dance rehearsal, you'd go online and look for people searching for a dance rehearsal with a sewing machine. And eventually you'd meet up one-to-one. So one of the founders of Our Goods, Rich Watts, had done a bunch of design work for Grand Opening, which is a space on the Lower East Side. They decided to pay him by using the space. He brainstormed with the other members of Our Goods, and they opened up Trade School for a month. It was incredibly popular. People wanted it back, so we raised about $9,000 through Kickstarter and rented space at St. Patrick's Old Cathedral.
And that generated a lot of attention and excitement around the project, and then so that session was followed by all of these residencies at the Whitney Museum, at the Cucifrido's Gallery in the Lower East Side, and the Museum of Art and Design. And now we're starting a new session at the new school. In the beginning, the session was organized by this constant flood of emails. It was a new thing, and it was pretty hard to deal with. So we made the first version of our website where people can submit classes and register to classes online. That made it easier.
And as we were open longer, more and more people would come through, maybe from out of town, and they wanted to know how to bring back this model to their own communities.
So we raised some more money to develop another version of the website, which will be, it is open source, and we can share it with others, with other potential organizers around the world.
Because we want spaces to be organized by the communities that are using them. We're not a franchise, we're like a framework. So we don't, people make their own logos. We wouldn't tell like Trade School London what their classroom should look like or what their curriculum should most predominantly feature.
Now there are about 20 schools open and running in all of these locations. There is a question of how we deal with sharing, like the values that we develop here, how do they apply to these other collectives? Because theoretically, when you talk about open source software, anybody could use it. So we try to, when organizers approach us, we try to see if we share these values, and we ask them to agree to these principles that we develop. So
we don't end up with a Trade School Procter & Gamble or anything like that. So one of our first agreements is that Trade School is not free. We're talking about revaluing the things we already have. So to say that there's no expense for these services is incorrect.
We're actively working to create safe spaces for people and ideas, and we also don't really allow teachers to sell a product or promote a business, and definitely not the exploitations of others.
So this is a really long one. I'm just going to read it out loud because I think it's really important. We work to identify and confront racism, classism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, and other oppressive forces where we encounter them. I think this is our most difficult agreement and our most difficult slide because it implies somehow we've reached the solution for dismantling these oppressive forces. Though actually, taking away those tendencies even within ourselves is the work of a lifetime. And I think it's also an issue with Trade School New York that much of our constituency is between the ages of 20 and 30, college educated, many of them artists, and a lot of them are white. I don't want to say all of them are because I feel like that makes invisible this amazing community of diversity that also exists here and participates in Trade School, not to mention negating the work of people in Oakland and Singapore and Bangkok and wherever who are organizers or people of color. But it is something we think about and talk about a lot at Trade School New York. We go to anti-oppression trainings, we talk about our privilege, and we're working a lot on outreach. So one of the things we're doing is beginning to have classes in Spanish that are either bilingual or solely in Spanish. And we're hoping to run a session, Trade School en Español. Right now we're looking for more organizers. One of the main New York organizers, Christhian Diaz, is doing a bunch of translation for us. And we find plenty of people willing to teach, but we're always looking for more people to do some of the background work. So if you are someone who is bilingual or know someone who is and want to talk to us about it, that would be great. We're organized without hierarchy, meaning that if you make decisions, you also do the dishes. Everyone gets to do fun and not fun work.
Sometimes doing the dishes is fun.
Yeah.
We also share power and information and that applies both to the New York group and to the larger collective. So in the New York group, we try to teach each other skills. So if somebody is interested in a certain aspect of how trade school runs, we include them in this operation. So I teach fellow organizers programming. Another organizer, Caroline Woolard, she teaches us grant writing. And in fact, this presentation is also a way for us to learn new skills and support each other. Because we haven't really been doing this before. But then when we talk about the larger collective, we're working on developing this new platform called Talk Trade School, which is just for organizers to both reevaluate the principles that were developed here. We want to include everybody in this conversation, and to share resources and help each other. And actually this website was designed by Danila, who organizes Trade School in Milan. So it's already starting to happen, which is exciting too.
Because with mutual respect, anything is possible.
Thank you for having us.